It may have been part of the same interview where Floyd Mayweather spoke to Fat Joe about Mike Tyson and the Roy Jones Jr. upcoming exhibition. But they got onto the subject of pick your top 5 best fighters of all time, which, of course, caused some amusement. Floyd Mayweather's has not changed, at least for his top pick, since when he did that interview on that Spanish show, was it a few years ago? And he did his top 5 fighters. So Mayweather picks himself again as number 1. He picks Pernell Whitaker as number 2. Now, I've heard that those guys actually sparred in the late 90s before Whitaker retired. It would have been great to see Sweet Pea spar with a young Money May, or I should say Pretty Boy. If anyone's got any tape of that, I'd love to see that. Number 3, Roberto Duran. What is it Mayweather says? He always just says, I got to take my hat off. He says something like that. Larry Holmes, number 4. Now this seems to go against, if there is any, Mayweather's logic previously given. He said against Ali or Joe Louis that he didn't really consider heavyweights because they're so big and they can't go up in weight. Well, that logic doesn't seem to apply to this list he did. And then number 5, Aaron Pryor, who he said only really lost because of drugs. Now, Aaron Pryor was really exciting and was fantastic. But really, his wins, beat Antonio Cervantes for the title in 80, best win over Arguello coming up in weight. It's like I can think of so many fighters who have much deeper resumes than Aaron Pryor. So yeah, Mayweather's list, a bit all over the place. I can appreciate him in giving shout-outs because it's not like he didn't give any reasoning. You know, he spoke about how accomplished Larry Holmes was. And Holmes is a guy who's always, I think, been a bit salty because he was sandwiched between Ali and Tyson and didn't feel he got the respect that he deserves. So I can appreciate some of Mayweather's rationale. But as a list, it's a bit weird. And Fat Joe's Tito Trinidad is in the top 5 best fighters of all time. It's like, what? We've got Muhammad Ali, Floyd Mayweather, Mike Tyson, and Sugar Ray Leonard. So they're not terrible picks. But one obvious thing with both of their top 5 here, neither man has Sugar Ray Robinson, which even for people who don't know the history that well, it's just basically like a mandatory, obligatory pick. Now, you've got 2 kind of different lists in the world of boxing. You've got your historians list or your hardcore fans list. They're going to include people from way back in Queensbury. Whereas you've got more of your fans list. I don't want to use the word casual, but you've got your fans list. And they're mostly going to look at fighters from like post-World War II onwards. They're not going to consider the Harry Grebs or the Sam Langfords. It's just how it works. So I can make that divide. But even still, no Robinson. It's like, what's going on there? Very, very odd. What were some of the things he said about these guys? Yeah, that was it. Like, no Roy Jones. If they're just looking at guys from, what, the 60s onwards, to not have Roy Jones, you know, or even mention him, Tito Trinidad, it's like, I mean, we'll give Fat Joe a pass here, but Roy Jones, of course, made ballsy moves, I think, that Mayweather didn't really do, you know. He was reckless the way he came down from heavyweight and fought Tarver again. You know, it led to his demise in a way, but Roy Jones did all kinds of stuff. And ultimately, he won titles from middle to heavy. You know, that is massive. And the Hopkins and James Toney wins are fantastic. They're probably better single wins than Manny Pacquiao's got. You know, those 2 wins are probably historically, they've got more weight to them than, say, Pacquiao's win over Barrera, right, in 03. So to not have Roy Jones there or mention him is a bit odd. But what do you think of Floyd Mayweather's new revised top 5 greatest of all time list? Do you think he's just a bit nuts? What do you think of him putting himself as number 1 again? And what do you make of Fat Joe's and putting Tito Trinidad in there?